Hello and welcome to the Amazing Jessy Show. Also welcome to day 9 of 14 days with Amazing Jessy. Today my topic is let go and let God. So let's get into it. If you look through the Bible, there's so many things God has promised us, and with each promise comes a principle. And I like to think that with a lot of promises, there's a you factor and there's a God factor. But something that a lot of people like to do to speed up the fulfillment of said promise is take over the God factor because they know what they're doing. And maybe you think you do. But a lot of the time, taking over what God is supposed to do elongates the process or just jeopardizes the whole thing. If you think of Abraham and Sarah in the Bible, God promised them a child. And at first they're like, yes, God has promised us a child, we are waiting for that child. But then when years and years passed and they didn't see the child, they were like, we're not getting any younger, where is the child? So Abraham said, let me take this into my own hands. And he did. And he got a child. But he didn't get the child God promised. When we try to take over God's part in the promise, do we get what God promised or do we just get what's possible by man? I feel like a lot of the time with God's promises or what God says he will do, we try to think about what is realistic or possible on earth and by man. Yet we forget that God doesn't work by man's rules or man's ways. So when God says he'll do something, his way is his way and his way is the best way. Another thing I think we forget about is God has God's timing. You may think that a thing is supposed to come at this certain time, but God hasn't done it and you think that God is late. But God is never late. God is never too early. God knows the right time. And hindsight is always the best vision, 2020 vision, because you may not see why God has put a thing at a certain time, but when it's over, you'll see that God knew what was best. My dad always says this, like God is watching us from above, meaning that God can see what's going to happen before even we see when it's going to happen. So sometimes when God says you should go right and it still looks to you that left is the right way, just go right because you can't see what God can see. So yes, it may be frustrating not knowing why we have to do something or why a certain thing hasn't come into your life yet, but just know that God knows what's best. It's like if you watched like a game, right, and you knew everything that happened in that game, you knew the outcome of that game, and you rewatched it, you and yourself are relaxed because you know what's about to happen. God knows what's going to happen in your life. God knows the best way to lead you. So sometimes just let go and let God. And remember, it's all about Jesus. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you. See you tomorrow.